Have you ever felt disconnected from life, as if you were stuck in a rut, trying to control everything around you but not really finding peace? What if I told you that there is an invisible force, alive inside you right now, capable of completely transforming your reality? In this video, you'll discover the power of universal consciousness, and how aligning yourself with it can bring clarity, purpose, and freedom to your life. You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone. There is a divine flow that already knows where to take you. All you need is to allow yourself to listen to this presence that has always been there, waiting for you to awaken. The truth is that the peace you so desperately seek is not in the future, in someone else or in external circumstances. It already lives in you, and today you're going to learn how to access it. But the journey begins now. How willing are you to let go of the internal struggle and make room for something greater? Stay with me until the end, because this message could be just what you need to see life in a completely new way, and finally experience the lightness of living in tune with the essence of who you really are. Imagine for a moment that everything you're looking for, peace, purpose, answers, is already available within you. And more than that, you are part of a greater, infinite force that creates and sustains everything that exists. This force, this living presence, is universal consciousness. It is not distant, inaccessible, or restricted to a select few. It flows through everything and everyone, including you. You don't have to be perfect or do anything special to deserve it. You are already part of it. You always have been. This awareness is present in every beat of your heart, in every breath. It's the same energy that makes a flower open effortlessly and the stars move in perfect sync. Everything in creation works in harmony because it is aligned with this consciousness. And you too are part of this flow, even at times when you feel lost or disconnected. The problem is that we often get so caught up in the noises of the mind, worries, judgments, demands, that we forget this simple and profound truth. We are not alone. Life is not a battlefield where you have to fight to feel worthy or enough. The love you seek is not outside, but in the very essence of who you are. The more you open up to this truth, the more you realize that you don't have to strive to be loved or recognized. Universal consciousness is unconditional and never moves away from you, even when you feel you have failed. It is present, silent, and constant, just waiting for you to recognize it. Have you ever realized that the greatest answers often come in moments of silence? When the mind finally rests and you simply are. It doesn't have to be a great spiritual experience or a distant retreat. It could be during a walk, watching the clouds, or in the simple act of breathing deeply. These small moments of presence are doorways to this consciousness. In them, you remember that you don't have to carry the world on your shoulders. You are part of something much bigger, and that brings relief. As you reconnect with this inner presence, you begin to see life differently. External circumstances lose some of the power they once had over you. Instead of being carried away by haste or fear, you start to trust the process, even when the answers are still unclear. Because you know deep down that there is a flow guiding everything, and that flow always knows where it's taking you. How many times have you felt alone, as if you were dealing with the weight of the world with no one to help? This feeling of isolation is one of the great illusions that the ego makes us believe. It convinces us that we are just separate individuals, each fighting for our own survival. But this is a limited perception of reality. The truth is that you have never been alone. There is an invisible connection that unites all things, and that connection is universal consciousness itself, flowing through every person, every tree, every star. When you realize that you are not separate from anything, your way of living changes profoundly. Suffering arises precisely from this illusion of separation, as if you needed to prove your worth or compete for space. But when you see the interconnectedness of everything, you understand that what you do to others, you do to yourself. The love you give is the love you receive. The anger you carry is a burden that also weighs on you. With every act, you are connecting or disconnecting from this essential truth. Have you ever noticed how your energy influences the environment around you? Imagine walking into a room where everyone is tense and irritable. You feel that tension, even if no one says anything. In the same way, a genuine smile or an act of kindness can completely change someone's day. This is because we are all intertwined in this great web of life. Your thoughts and actions don't end with you. They expand and touch others like waves crossing a lake. Recognizing this unity brings deep peace. You understand that you don't always have to be in a position of defense or judgment, because there are no enemies. Each person who crosses your path is a reflection of the same essence that lives in you. Even in difficult times, this connection is still present. When someone hurts you, it's actually that person's wounded ego acting out. The universal consciousness remains intact. And when you choose to see beyond the pain and respond with compassion, you align yourself with the divine flow and dispel the illusion of separation. Everything changes when you realize that you are not against the world, but in tune with it. The barriers begin to fall away, and you discover that there is more unity than you imagined. And in this new state of perception, a natural question begins to emerge. If we are all connected, how can we act out of this love and trust, even in the midst of life's challenges? Living in tune with universal consciousness means choosing love as the starting point for every thought, word, and action. It's a kind of love that demands nothing in return, doesn't impose itself, and isn't afraid to offer itself. When you act with this quality of love, something profound happens. Life, which previously seemed full of blockages and obstacles, begins to flow naturally. Situations that were once heavy become lighter, and answers emerge effortlessly. Acting with love is not just a feeling, it's a conscious decision. It's choosing to look at the other person with compassion, even when it would be easier to judge. It's listening patiently, even when you want to respond quickly. And above all, it's trusting in the process of life, without trying to control the outcome of everything. When you act from this awareness, it doesn't mean that all problems disappear immediately, but you realize that you are no longer at war with what happens. Peace is already present in the midst of action. Do you know that moment when you want to be right at all costs, or when pride wants to speak up? These are the most valuable moments to remember the power of conscious love. Because acting with love sometimes means choosing not to react. It's taking a step back, taking a deep breath and asking yourself, what is this situation teaching me? How can I respond from a place of peace rather than fear? In these simple choices, you align yourself with the divine flow, and life begins to open doors that previously seemed closed. When you trust this flow, even challenges take on new meaning. What once seemed unfair or burdensome becomes an opportunity for growth. Every difficult situation is a chance to practice this love in action. Not an idealized love, but a love that acts in everyday life, that forgives, that understands, and that offers itself without reservation. And the more you act in this way, the more your life comes into harmony with what is already perfect in the essence of the universe. That's the secret. When you act with love, you're not just helping others, you're also helping yourself. Because love is the only energy that always returns multiplied. What you give with your heart comes back to you in forms you can't always predict. And as you practice this giving, something deeper begins to reveal itself. You discover that true power lies not in controlling life, but in trusting it completely. Have you ever noticed how the mind is always racing? It jumps from the past to the future, revisiting old worries or trying to predict what might go wrong. But in the midst of all this noise, presence, that silent, attentive state, becomes difficult to access. And that's exactly where universal consciousness is waiting for you. In the inner silence, where there is no struggle, only peace. The truth is that all the answers you are looking for are not outside, but inside you, available in the stillness of now. Being present is more than just stopping distracting yourself. It's allowing yourself to be with what is, without wanting to change, escape, or control the moment. At first, this may seem uncomfortable, because silence exposes what you've been avoiding: fears, pains, anxieties. But it's also in silence that you find the peace that the world can't offer. Peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances, but on a deep connection with who you really are, an expression of universal consciousness itself. This practice of presence is simple but powerful. You don't need complicated rituals to access it. You can start with something small, a minute of conscious breathing, mindfulness while having a coffee or a leisurely walk. When you give yourself over to these moments, something inside you calms down. The mind, which always wants to solve everything, finally rests. And in this quiet space, life begins to reveal itself as it is, perfect in every detail. The answers you so desperately seek usually come in those moments when the mind is no longer pushing. It could be the solution to a problem that seemed impossible, an idea that comes out of nowhere, or the intuition of which way to go. This doesn't happen by chance. It's universal consciousness moving through you. The more you trust this presence, the more you realize that you don't need to have all the answers right away. They come at the right time, when you are open to hearing them. Being present is an act of trust. It's like saying, "I'm here, and that's enough." And the more you inhabit this presence, the less fears and worries can dominate your mind. Life stops being a race and becomes a flow, where every moment has its value. And it is from this state of stillness that something greater begins to emerge. A new consciousness, a new way of living, where love and peace become your basis for all choices. Every time you choose to align with universal consciousness, something in you changes. And this change is not limited to your inner self. It is reflected in every relationship, every decision, and even in the small interactions of your day. When you raise your consciousness, you realize that you are no longer reacting on impulse. You are no longer controlled by fear or the ego. And this personal transformation has a direct impact on the world around you. What starts inside you spreads like waves, touching other lives, even if you don't realize it right away. The world you see out there is a reflection of the individual consciousnesses that make it up. Every choice you make, however subtle it may seem, contributes to creating a collective reality. If you choose forgiveness over hurt, patience over haste, and love over judgment, you are changing the vibration around you. And that inspires others to do the same. That's the power of your conscious presence. It expands and invites others to awaken too. The changes the world needs start within each one of us. There's no need to wait for great external revolutions. When you change, the world changes with you. Think of how many times a simple kind word has changed your day. Now imagine the impact that a life lived with love and awareness can have. You become a point of light in the midst of darkness, and that light spreads to everyone who crosses your path. This is how the collective rises, through the silent and continuous transformation of each awakened heart. And when many of us awaken to this new consciousness, something greater happens. The illusion of separation begins to dissolve, and a new reality emerges. The barriers between people, the fears that divide, all this begins to lose strength. Living from this universal consciousness is like planting the seeds of a more just and compassionate world. And every little attitude, every conscious thought, is one of those seeds that will grow in due course. So remember, never underestimate the power of your transformation. Every time you choose love, you're not just changing your life, you're changing the world. And the beautiful thing is that this journey doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be real, lived one step at a time. The world we all want begins with each of us deciding to be the change, now, in the present. The transformation of the world begins within you. Every thought, every choice, every act of love is a seed that you plant in the reality around you. You are not alone on this journey. The same love that moves the stars inhabits your heart, waiting to manifest through you. Now is the time to live this truth and let your light shine, not tomorrow, not the day after, but here and now. If this message has touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Comment below on how you have brought more love and awareness into your life. Your experience may inspire others. And if there's someone who needs to hear this message, share it. Every act of light multiplies when we spread it. Thank you for walking with me this far. May the peace and love you have found today stay with you, and grow every day. Let's transform the world together, one awakened heart at a time.